Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the charts when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin rainbow chart as well as some other indicators, trying to get some sense of where Bitcoin may be going in the near future. First, starting off with crypto fear and greed, we are still down into fear, and gotta love the different advertisements they have. We have this Karen advertisement. This is my favorite one yet, but still down in fear. We've been down in fear for a little bit. You can see we were up into neutral as recently as just a couple days ago, but overall trending down in this 30 to 50 range. As we take a look at the trend from the last year, we have been in this downtrend, and I'm still wondering if we are possibly getting ready to break up or make lower lows. So just something to keep an eye on. In the past, when fear and greed has sort of consolidated in a certain area for a while, many times the more of a low is coming or more of a high is coming. So up here it consolidated for a while and had the all-time high over here. We were down into fear for a while, and the ultimate low came later. So if we do hang down here for a while, I'd say odds are, at least in the past, that we may see lower lows in the near future. Of course, something to keep in mind for the crypto cycle, or the cycles as we look into the rainbow chart, is just Bitcoin dominance. This is something very important indicator. And when Bitcoin dominance tanks, at least the last two cycles, that's when altcoins have gone up a bunch. So if you are new to the crypto space, do familiarize yourself with Bitcoin dominance. And as far as the alt season trend, it is still in an uptrend, albeit still at the lower end. So we have not even at an alt season peak yet, even with how good things were in March of this year. It only peaked around here. So things can get a lot better for altcoins in the future. And then going over to the rainbow chart, let's zoom in just a little bit here. You can see we've been down into this teal zone, the accumulate zone, at least the upper end of it, and the lower end of the still cheap zone. So really important news, probably the most important news of the whole year is tomorrow. The Fed is cutting rates. How much those rate cuts are going to be is going to affect the markets quite a bit. Every time can be somewhat different, but a couple ways to look at it. This is just on average. The dark green is when the Fed cuts rates on average in bullish scenarios where the markets can still go up for a year. You can see the amount of days at the bottom. The light green is the scenario for when the markets don't do so well for the following year. And you can see here that at least on average, the dip, that would be about 180 days, so 6 months. So if we were to have this type of a scenario, you could say, okay, maybe 6 months from now, we might expect somewhat of a decent bottom. But if we are in a bullish scenario, which this chart pattern at least matches more so what I think the S&P 500 has been doing lately, then maybe we can go up for another year. But it all depends on the rate at which the Fed cuts rates. So if the Fed is cutting fast, if they're cutting large, typically that has been bearish in the past. Now, something I've been thinking about this a lot, because in the dot-com bubble and the great financial crisis, when they cut by 50 basis points, the market bottom was a year and a half, 2 years later, and it just went straight down into that point, or generally trended down, but there was no new all-time highs until after the bottoms were eventually made. But something to consider is even if the Fed does 50 basis point cuts, I don't know if I quite jump on that same train that the bottom is going to be coming before a new all-time high. And the reason why is, again, it depends at the rate of which they cut rates. So the Fed may cut by 50 basis points just to see how the market reacts and not cut next month, which would then average it out to 25 basis point cuts per month. So you want to see what's the trend. If they're averaging somewhere around 50 per month or every session that they meet, then yeah, this is what's happened in the past. but I'm looking more towards a 1998, 2019 style cut. So 1998, still a few years before the dot-com bubble burst. I think we're in an AI bubble, nowhere near what the dot-com bubble was back here, but just something to keep an eye on, guys. That is going to affect crypto and what happens in the world of crypto. And just going over to Bitcoin, we only really have one data point if we zoom way out, and that's in 2019 when the Fed first cuts rates. That's the orange line. You can see there was a mid-cycle top at that time, and Bitcoin got all the way. It just kept going down until the 100-week moving average. Yes, there was the COVID crash, black swan event later, but the 100-week moving average, if we are around there, even though anytime a stock or crypto gets under the 50-week, you could say technically that's bearish, that does not mean it's a bad time to buy or dollar cost average in. As you can see, by the time Bitcoin made its next top, how long was crypto under the 50-week moving average or by the 100? Those would have been the best times to buy. So just something to consider. The rate cut did happen closer to that mid-cycle top. This time it is a little different. We had the mid-cycle top here where the yellow line is, the white line's the halving, and we're about to have the rate cut here. So are we getting ready to go down further towards this light blue line? That's the 100-week moving average. Again, EMA scale, that's at around 46K. You can see there's some price action there around 41 to 45K. So anything in here would not surprise me, even if it got down in the most bearish scenario. Let's say Bitcoin does go down in the immediate term, it would not surprise me if it got down to the 200-week moving average, and that's this dark blue line back or down here by the 618 macro fib. So, and that's at around 39K. And guys, I'm not saying that is going to happen, but just something to keep an eye on. And I mean, alternatively speaking, you can look at something going on with Bitcoin right now is it does have a weekly buy signal. And one of the reasons I do put on Heikin-Ashi candles is usually, most of the time, these candles go in pairs, or at least more than a pair. So you can see had a sell signal, two red candles. We talked about this back then, how we had a red candle. Odds are we're going to see another one. This is a nice doji candle here, and all of a sudden it's trending upwards. An area I'm watching for Bitcoin, should it continue to be upwards. And by the way, this week has not been finished printing. Look at this doji candle right here. So you can see maybe a three-wave pattern for me. 1, 2, 3. Is Bitcoin getting ready to break out? Really, what I want to see is it break above this 100-day moving average and this trend line. You can see there are lower highs, just a minor trend line, could easily break, and eventually it will break. But I'm really interested to see if Bitcoin gets above this 60,800, but not just gets above, but closes above, kind of like it did back here, steady close, then that would be the first test. The second test, you'd want to break this former lower high before at around 65,000. So those are two targets to look for. Again, you can just think around numbers, 61,000, 65,000. All right, let's go over to the rainbow chart, and let's just look maybe in the near future. Let's say Bitcoin does what it did. Hold on, let me hydrate. Let's say it does something similar that it did in 2019. And you guys remember, we just showed 2019 went down with rate cuts. And you can see here June of 2019 till about December. So about 6 months, okay? Again, I'm not really counting this. But let's say Bitcoin from here goes down for 6 months, or we'll do 3 to 6 months. We'll take a look at that on the rainbow chart. Well, 3 months from now, October, November, December, let's go out to December and see where the rainbow chart is. So there's some zones there. What's interesting, you see that buy zone, the second color from the bottom, that lower end of the buy zone is right around where that 200-week moving average is now. Now, by that time, it'll be in a much different place, but That's also near where that 618 fib is that I showed you guys on the chart. So that would be a bearish scenario. Maybe it gets down to the lower end of the buy zone, it goes down a couple more color bands until that time. And could that happen? I mean, guys, back here in 2019, you can see went through the yellow, the green, the teal, and then this was a COVID crash. So let's just say it went down 3 bands besides the black swan event. So 3 bands total. Well, right now, Bitcoin got into the yellow, but right now this is 1, 2. The third band, again, would be the lower end of that buy zone, which again puts us at that 618 fib. You guys see that 37K number? So again, let's go back here. The fib I have drawn, this is a fib retracement, drew from the low to the high macro on the log scale. That number is right around here, and it's near where the 200 week moving averages. So again, give or take, the 200, the moving averages are always changing. But in the most bearish scenario, 3 months from now, okay, maybe there. What about 6 months from now? We'll go out into March. We're just taking a look at bullish and bearish scenarios today, okay? Because that's what I think is likely going to happen, is one of these two things. But again, it depends on cuts. I don't know what the cuts are going to be. You can see that in a 6-month downtrend, wouldn't that suck? You can see Bitcoin, again, being near that 618 fib, this time a little higher, around $40,000. So that's in a bearish scenario. Now, what about bullish? How do I look for bullish case scenarios? Let's say this weekly buy signal is the start, the confirmation of something going higher, okay? And we are going to make new all-time highs into the election, and we're going to have an early peak. Maybe by March, maybe 6 months from now, we have the next Bitcoin top. Well, when you take your fib off log scale, you can see the fib extensions, and we have the 1618 at 100K, the 2618 at 155K. This has been my absolute top, or at least I think either the next top's going to just get up to it, or maybe a little higher between this 2618 and the 3618. But I'm really eyeing in this range right here, especially if it's an early peak, somewhere in that range. By the way, Bitcoin market cap here would be around 3 trillion. Why is that important? Well, other stocks, top stocks in the world like Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia have around the same market cap. So that would be interesting. But we have the 1618 here at 100K. What's been interesting to me, and I'm really curious to see what's going to happen, is that 1618 heads straight out towards this green line. Now the green line here is December of this year. Okay. Why is that green line there? Well, you see right there, when you take the average from a new all-time high to the next peak, that average is around 300 days. Now, the reason I did this calculation is because for the first time this cycle, we had a new all-time high before the halving. Usually the all-time highs have come after the halving. So you can see here, the yellow line, the break of the former all-time high was way after where the halving was in May of 2020. The new all-time high was November, December. And then you can see not too long until the eventual peaks. Now, we have been going down since that new all-time high, and that has happened in cycles before. I want to say, let's see, not in the 2017 cycle, not in the 2013. Okay, maybe I'm wrong. I thought there was 1 or 2 where it went down. Maybe it was the halving I was thinking about. Yeah, that was it. So in 2016, halving, it went down a little bit. So we are getting some similarities. 2016 went down from the halving, and here in 2024, we're going down since the halving, okay? But either way, you guys know about 300 days from the new all-time high to the next peak. That puts us around the end of this year, okay? That line meets with this 1618 fib, which shows Bitcoin at around 100K. We have the double peak trend line from 2021 meeting up near that area as well. Okay, those are 3 things meeting right here. And we have the trend line on log scale that Bitcoin's been in love with meeting up here as well. You can see Bitcoin keeps hitting this trend line, snaking, climbing around it. Now we are underneath it. Are we getting some support off the 50-week moving average and getting ready to move up? Possibly. But if so, that's 4 conversion points. Hey, I just took the fib off logs. You guys remember where it was? Around that area of 100K. So if we are to have an early peak and things are going to be bullish after the rate cuts, I'm really interested to see if Bitcoin, there's a lot of signs pointing up here around that 100K area. I'm really curious to see if that's going to happen. If rate cuts are all of a sudden going to be micro bullish in the short term, and then eventually it goes down. This red line, by the way, you guys can see that's the average from the halving to the next peak. So as far as rate cuts, that's my bullish scenario. This right here is my bearish scenario between 38 to 49K, somewhere in there. Bullish scenario, 100K. And then who knows what? Is it going to remain that way until the average somewhere in here? Talking about Bitcoin dominance, for any of you guys that are new to this, this is what I was talking about before, is that at the end of the last 2 cycles, you see this big sell-off here. Well, it's not necessarily a sell-off, but Bitcoin dominance, 58% of all money right now in crypto is in Bitcoin. When that money converts over into alts and alts or Bitcoin miners explode, this took about a month. 2021, it took about 2 months. Are we going to get something similar and it's going to be a month and a half or 3 months? I don't know. But Bitcoin dominance, it is breaking above these trend lines. Guys, usually that tends to be bearish for Bitcoin when dominance is still going up. So, take this with a grain of salt. Tether dominance. Tether is a stable coin. And what's Tether doing right now? Well, Tether, you can see, is in a little bit of a downtrend. So, if Tether dominance was to continue in a downtrend, that'd be bullish for the price of Bitcoin. But if this is just a higher low and Tether dominance is going to bounce off one of these moving averages, okay, we may see a minor rally in Bitcoin before an eventual dump if Tether is just going to continue going upwards like this. So I'd say, my gut feeling right now is that with Tether dominance the way it's trending, with Bitcoin dominance the way it's trending, with what happened in 2019, my gut feeling is still overall somewhere maybe down here or closer to the 100-week moving average. But my gut feeling doesn't matter. My channel, I just want to take what the price action shows us and go from there. So many channels, they talk about ridiculous predictions and things like that. What my goal is when I watch these channels, I think, is now a good time to buy or not? And that's the content I try to bring you guys. Are we at good value? We're at decent value, at least with Bitcoin. And I'm sure for the altcoins. So yes, back here at the 50-week moving average, great value or pretty decent value to get in overall, should you believe in the cycles. But it could be great value back there. So that's why I'm looking at, if it got up here, I wouldn't be buying. The time to buy has been here and down here. Okay, there's been better times to buy. Let's finish on the rainbow chart and we'll call it there. Again, I think I'll title this just bullish versus bearish rate cut scenarios. But by the end of the year, where would that 100K mark be? Funny enough, that would be in the yellow box, which is the height that Bitcoin got to. And I've been talking, guys, about how this rainbow chart, it was above the highest band back here in 2013. It was in the max bubble territory here in 2017. 2021, it was in these zones right here, the upper end of this one, lower end of this, okay? So I've been eyeing somewhere in between here in these orange zones just by the trend. And the way it trends down is also the way it trends up. You can see the lows keep going up a zone every halving. The highs keep going down a zone every peak. And we went up in another zone here like clockwork. And so if that's going to happen again, guys, if we had an early top and we only got into the yellow zone, that would be something very different. I'm not ready to say that we are going to have an early top, but hey, you never know, and you have to just be ready for this. Okay, if there's many signs pointing in that direction, I just want to point that out. Do I think that's going to happen? No, but I could be wrong. So if we are to have a bullish scenario early, we're looking at the yellow band. But if Bitcoin is going to be getting to that 150K range and we're looking at the orange boxes right there, maybe it is somewhere around March or April. You can see the orange boxes, the lower end of the orange and the upper end of the light orange. That would put us at that 150K. So maybe by somewhere middle of next year or before summer, Bitcoin does top up here. It'd still be somewhat of an early top because the ultimate peaks have been in November, November, December each time. But we did have that early peak last time from all the low rates and stimmy checks, and that early peak was in April. So are we going to get a 4-year cycle from this April peak? And maybe things are getting ready to explode until then. I think that's one of the areas I'm leaning towards the most. But again, I don't want to get caught up too much in the prediction game because oftentimes you'll be wrong. But I think that's where my gut is pointing me. Anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And just wanted to give a little shout out. I got a comment. I'm pretty sure it's from this guy. But when I talked about the power law, you can Google this and Google the guy's name. He has a really good article about the power law, how it worked. Talked about how the chart that I looked at wasn't the best chart to look at. And this guy goes into way more detail. If you want to educate yourself, it's a great article. Highly recommend it if you're interested in going down a little bit of a rabbit hole. Again, not enough time in this video to do that, but really great article that talks about Bitcoin power law. I'll address this more in a video maybe this week or next, but please do check that out. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great Tuesday. Take care.